Welcome back to the channel. I've got a very special guest on again, Alessio. Thanks again for joining us here on the channel.
Thanks very much for having me, Jason.
I say again because we've got a couple of videos here already on the channel. The previous one was looking at stock markets, what's happening in the now and in the coming years, looking at potentially big collapses. But today I want to have a look at Bitcoin and what's in store for 2023. Some key price targets, I guess, we're looking at here, whether it can get to all-time highs or we've got some critical levels to get through first. So
Yeah,
if you haven't seen Alessio, I'll just mention all your links are in the video description, so go down and check out Alessio as
thank
well.
you.
We've got a couple of videos out on his channel as well, discussing all things macro, cycles, stock markets, and the like.
Yeah, basically, Jason. I mean, before we look at the chart and show you what I'm going to show you on the key levels, I think it's worth mentioning that because of the correlation, the positive correlation between stock markets and Bitcoin. Usually, when one thing happens in the stock markets, we see something similar happening to Bitcoin. Sometimes the correlation can be off. It has been this year. Sometimes you see them moving together. Sometimes they don't move together. And that has happened in the last several
Like
months.
a delayed effect.
Yeah, delayed effect, you could call it that. Yeah. So one uncertainty which kind of worries me is, well, we mentioned in a separate video, and people probably want to see that video as well. We mentioned there's a high probability of a pullback or retracement on the stock market. The question is, what impact could that have on Bitcoin? I honestly don't know, because if the correlation is going to stay, the positive correlation, then it could put downward pressure on Bitcoin, probably. Unless the correlation breaks down at some point. But I think the key question is, if the stock market starts a pullback in the next few weeks or sooner, which I think is quite likely, because the stock market is quite overstretched, overbought, extremely overbought, and hitting resistance. Again, people should watch that other video on the stock market.
Careful what you say. Jim Cramer also said that. But
He
I
did.
see the same thing. He did, yeah.
People give Jim Cramer a bad rep, but I actually have one of his books here, if I'm not mistaken.
You're losing the viewers, Alessio.
No, honestly,
don't ever.
I definitely have a Jim Cramer book on my shelf here. I can't find, but no, people give him. To be fair to Jim Cramer, what I like about him is that he makes something extremely boring. I mean, it's not boring to me. I find the stock market and charts fascinating, but to the average person, to most people out there, the stock markets are boring. I mean, who wants to sit and watch an hour video or program on the stock market? And what he does is it makes it entertaining and interesting. So I think we should give him credit for that, because he does make it really interesting and entertaining. He also, back in the day when I used to watch his show a long time ago, he said something which is stuck in my mind. He said, "It's not buy and hold," which is what 90% of people believe in, buy and hold. No, he says buy and homework. He's right about that. It's not just buying and holding willy-nilly. No, you buy and then you got to do your homework. So it's not just buy and hold. It's a matter of, you need to know in advance what point you're going to sell, how you're going to limit risk, when you're going to take profits, and things like that. So I like Jim Cramer for that reason. Does he get it wrong every now and then? Yes, he does. But so do I. I get it wrong every now and then. So does every analyst out there. We're human beings. We're going to get it wrong every now and then.
You've brought another side to Jim Cramer that many of us have never seen before. So appreciate that, if that's the positive out of the whole thing. But in terms of Bitcoin, you want to jump over to that? We've got a few more things to mention.
Yeah, sure.
Before we have a look at these.
Let's go with Bitcoin. Levels. All right. So basically, this is the screenshot I took today. Now, notice I want to mention some important levels here. Firstly, the key pivot low that we made here in the month of June. I think that's the June low. 24,750 on this Coinbase chart. Okay, so that low we made in June is going to be absolutely crucial for Bitcoin to hold. As long as Bitcoin remains above that low, I remain bullish, long-term bullish for Bitcoin. At a minimum, to reach my next target, which is beyond the 50% retracement, I'm looking for it to move to this level at some point this year. Could be in the next few months. 39K approximately, 40K. Let's just round it up, 40K or 39K approximately. Okay, that's a 61.8%. Yeah, 61.8% logarithmic. I don't know if I can write this down. Log. Oops, no, I can't.
That's right. No, it's not coming up, but that's okay. We'll get it.
Coming up.
The log, because this is something very different to what I show on my charts. I was just saying that to you earlier.
Yeah,
is that I use the log chart, but in terms of the fib, I'll keep my fibs as linear. So I use a true 50%, whereas this 50% is actually the log being at 32,660. I think the linear at this stage is at 42,200. So quite different here, but interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, I would say you're absolutely right. You could use a linear retracement, Fibonacci retracement, or you can use a logarithmic Fibonacci retracement, which is then you have to enable the log setting within the indicator itself. Now,
Yep.
so the first important level is going to be the June low. Price has to stay above 24,750 to maintain the bullish expectation and path on the market. 21 weekly. That's also important. I need price to ideally stay above the 21 weekly as well. That is catching up with about 27k, approximately there. And this trend line, you can see this rising trend line. So we have another important support here as well. So I think as long as Bitcoin stays above these three important support levels, but the most important one is the June low. Even if it breaks the other two, it's not as important as it staying above that June low. The June low must be protected for me to maintain my bullish long-term analysis and expectation for Bitcoin. So provided
It could
those three,
wick below there, but as long as there's a close above it.
yeah, I mean, there might be a false break of this level. Who
Mm-hmm.
knows? I mean, we don't know, but as long as it ideally stays above that on a closing basis, or at least as long as it does not see a sustained move below that, which I think is less likely anyway. I think price is going to stay above that level personally. Then I'm looking for higher levels on Bitcoin to eventually reach this level, as I mentioned, the 61.8% retracement. Can you see this? This level I'm pointing out?
Yep.
Yeah,
39,000 for a round number.
39,000 or 40,000, approximately that level. That's where I think we're eventually going. The one thing we don't know, though, and this is the one thing that worries me or bothers me, is if the stock market is going to have a pullback, what impact will it have on Bitcoin? Can it induce a pullback, or how much of a pullback is the question on Bitcoin? Will we even see a pullback further than what we got so far? All I would say is this: if Bitcoin takes out, here's what I want: if Bitcoin takes out the recent high we made, the recent July highs, then I think we're going to probably a sustained move above the July high near 31,500, approximately there, or let's say above 32k. Then I could probably increase the likelihood to the next resistance levels, the 50% and the 61.8% retracement levels, if we take out that July high with sustained force. Then I think we're going to probably make that move up to those levels. One other thing I want to mention here is one thing that got me bullish on Bitcoin at the beginning of this year, and I mentioned this probably earlier. I mentioned this in my earlier videos. This is a 2-week chart. This is a 2-week time frame of Bitcoin. There was a MACD crossover right here, and in the past, whenever there's been a MACD positive crossover, which occurred in January of this year, I put out a video in January saying, "Look, there's a MACD positive crossover on the 2-week time frame." Below the zero line. You can see this is the zero line. I don't know if you guys can see.
Yeah, we can see that. Yeah, we've got that there.
Yeah, that's the zero line.
But yeah, it basically happened like a week before 2023. It was like December, but potentially early January.
Yeah,
right on that time frame.
Yeah, and usually that's a very positive factor. So here's one thing else I want to say this. I'm expecting Bitcoin to eventually go to 39k, as I said before, 40k. The big question is, can it exceed that level? Or will it fail at that level? That's the one thing we don't know. Assuming Bitcoin stays above the June low, which I think is likely. I think assuming we stay above June lows of 24,750, which I think is the higher probability. I'm looking for us to stay above this June low and continue towards 40k, towards this level here. Again, as I mentioned, 61.8% retracement. The question is, will it fail at that level and then collapse into a bear market, or will it push through that level and move towards the all-time highs? That's the one thing I don't know. I honestly don't know. We can have our theories, we can have our speculations. One thing I would say is a lot of the factors, a lot of the statistical analysis and data on the stock market is very bullish for the next 6 to 12 months. If the stock market makes all-time highs, perhaps that could drag Bitcoin also towards all-time highs as well. So some factors to bear in mind. But that's the one unknown factor which we don't know. I mean, that's the one uncertain factor for Bitcoin. How will it respond to this dangerous area at the 61% 40k level? We don't know. And let's wait.
Especially if the stock markets do have that pullback, which is getting long overextended at this stage.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Yeah, but there could be that kind of correlation in that respect. But let me also say this: that as I'm remaining long-term bullish, but if Bitcoin were to drop below that June low, then I will have to change my mind. If
Mhm.
Bitcoin, if Bitcoin were to drop below
If.
this June low, which I don't expect, I don't think it's likely, but if it does, that would mean it's breaking several support levels: the trend line support, the weekly 21, the June low support. If it breaks that June low, which I think is a lower probability, I'm not expecting that, then I would have to change my mind and become perhaps quite bearish on Bitcoin. But personally, I'm
Yeah.
not bearish. I'm gonna remain bullish for now. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the chart's saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's still up at that stage, and if it was to break under that low, which is 24,750, basically
yeah,
25, which was the double top in August 2022 and February 2023, if price starts to break underneath that previous resistance, which was support, and then
yeah.
becomes resistance again, that is a churny, choppy Bitcoin for an extended period of time. So as a summary for the levels for Bitcoin to look out for this year, somewhere around that 39K is probably the magic number that we want to see it get to. Would you say is correct?
Yes, I would say that's correct. You're right.
39. And 32 is really that number that we've got to get past.
Yeah,
And whether we hit that 39 is that next key level. So we've got a lot to look out for. There is the question mark about the stock markets, whether they come down and how that will affect Bitcoin. So we'll continue to follow up on that. I've appreciated all of your time with these videos that we've gone through the stock markets, macro cycles, BTC. Thanks once again, mate.
thanks, Jason. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
And if you guys want to follow Alessio, check out the other videos that we did on his channel. Links will be in the video description. So, yeah, much appreciated. Catch you guys at the next video. Cheers.